So, whenever the topic of AI and jobs comes up, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's those headlines, right? Robots are coming for our jobs. That's the story we've all heard a million times. But today, we're going to dig into the story we're missing, a much bigger and honestly a much more complex picture that affects billions of people all over the world.
Okay, so let's start with what we think we know. A huge study looking at the US labor market came out with this pretty reassuring finding. It said that even for jobs that are super exposed to AI, there wasn't some big systematic spike in unemployment. And, that's become the main story in a lot of developed countries, that the whole AI job apocalypse, well, it isn't really happening. At least not yet.
But here's the pivot. This is the crucial question. Does that one single metric, the unemployment rate, actually tell the whole story for everyone on the planet? I mean, what about countries where a formal 9-to-5 salary job is the exception, not the rule? This is exactly where that standard, comfortable story starts to completely fall apart.
And that leads us right to what you could call AI's big blind spot. We're about to explore why the very tools we use to measure economic health in places like the US or Europe are totally missing the real impact of AI across huge parts of the global South.
This right here really lays it out. It's like we're looking at two completely different worlds of work. In formal economies, we're all watching the unemployment rate. A big company announces layoffs, and bam, it's headline news. But in much of the global South, the pressure from AI is way more subtle. It's not about losing your one single job. It's about your wages slowly dropping, your hours getting cut back, or getting pushed from an already informal job into something even less stable. The warming signs are just completely different.
All right, so if the unemployment rate isn't the right number to be watching, then what should we be looking for? Let's dive into the hidden signals that show us what's really happening on the ground.
Just let this number sink in for a second. Roughly 60%, 60, of the entire global workforce is in the informal economy. We're talking about street vendors, day laborers, people running small family shops. These folks don't get a formal layoff notice. Their income just dries up. And their struggles are completely invisible to the official unemployment data we all look at.
And this really shows you the sheer scale of what we're talking about. The International Labor Organization has what they call a jobs gap, and it's at 402 million people. Now, that's not just people who are unemployed. It also includes the underemployed, people who have a job but desperately need more hours to survive, and all those who've gotten so discouraged they've just given up looking altogether. This is the massive, vulnerable group where the first real impacts of AI are going to be felt.
So here's the deal. We need to look for a whole different set of symptoms, things like earnings compression. That's when people are still working, but they're making less money or getting fewer hours. We've got to watch for rising informality, where stable jobs get replaced by unstable gig work. We need to track what's happening to young people trying to get their first job and what's happening in whole industries, like business process outsourcing, or BPO, which can shrink fast without ever causing a big, obvious spike in unemployment.
Okay, so just recognizing this blind spot is the first step. But what do we do about it? Well, that leads us to a proposal for a totally new kind of warning system, one that's designed specifically to see what's currently invisible.
It's called the Global South AI Labor Index, or GSALI for short. The best way to think about it is, it's not like a single gauge, like a gas meter. It's more like the entire dashboard of a car. Its whole purpose is to track a bunch of different things at once to get a real-time, much clearer picture of the stress AI might be putting on a country's workforce.
So how does this dashboard actually work? It tracks 6 key things. First is the slice of the workforce in informal employment getting bigger. Second, are we seeing that earnings compression we talked about? Are pathways for youth employment, those crucial first jobs, starting to close off? What about those AI-vulnerable sectors like BPO? Is the underemployment rate creeping up? And finally, does the country even have the digital infrastructure to adapt and benefit from AI? You see? Together, these 6 things paint a full picture that just looking at unemployment alone could never, ever show you.
An index sounds great in theory, right? But how do you turn it into a practical tool that governments can actually use? Well, you turn it into a dynamic AI risk dashboard.
And here's the perfect way to think about it. A standard unemployment report is like looking out the window and realizing it's already pouring rain. By then, it's too late. This dashboard, this is the weather radar. It spots the trouble brewing on the horizon, giving policymakers time to actually prepare before the storm hits.
And here's how it works in practice. The system is just constantly tracking those 6 key indicators. When one of them crosses a dangerous line, let's say there's a sudden jump in youth underemployment, it automatically raises a red flag.
All that data then gets rolled up into a simple overall risk score: low, moderate, or high. This lets governments stop just reacting to crises and start acting before they happen, targeting support where it's needed most.
And this brings us to the final and really the most important point of all. Because look, having a better monitoring system is totally pointless if it doesn't lead to better action. It's all about consciously choosing the future we actually want.
When you're armed with this better data, the policy path forward gets a lot clearer. Governments need to start gathering the right kinds of labor statistics, not just the old ones. They need to build and actually use these dashboards. They have to invest in things like affordable internet access so workers can benefit from AI, not just be replaced by it. And crucially, they need to figure out how to extend social protections to those vulnerable, informal workers and fund training for skills that work with AI.
So it all comes down to this really powerful question. The technology itself, AI, it's just a tool. The outcome isn't set in stone. The choice of whether AI fuels inclusive growth or just becomes a cause of invisible decline, that depends entirely on the actions we take right now. Are we going to keep using outdated tools that leave billions of people in a blind spot? Or are we going to build the systems we need to see the full picture and actually shape a better future for everyone? That's the real story.